This is Bitcoin October of last year, trading around $69,000, the most massive inverse head and shoulders in Bitcoin history, approaching the breakout neckline. And here's how things have played out since breaking that neckline back here around 69,000. We are on our way, and we have a shorter term inverse head and shoulders now in play that takes us right into our macro inverse head and shoulders target. We have very big hints on something like a SUI chart for altcoins, a Cardano chart for altcoins. Right now, I want to say the purpose of this video is to do technical analysis on crypto markets right now, but it's also to put aside emotion. We have to put aside emotion right now because we're getting some nice moves. This is a Cardano chart, for instance, daily green candles, but you zoom out. We've not confirmed anything. Be very careful. Set emotion aside. Just set it aside. Look at the data. Let's study the data. Let's look at where confirmation areas are. It's that simple. So let's do that. Hit the subscribe, hit the like on the way in. If you're not in our intelligence system, please check out our sale that we have going on right now with our risk models, our exit planners, and let's jump in. I want to start with the Bitcoin chart just to kind of point something out to you as we segue into Bitcoin dominance and altcoins. Bitcoin is obviously, again, breaking all-time high right now. If you're an altcoin holder, this is a very important part of the altcoin holder journey. That is Bitcoin making a move, breaking an all-time high area, altcoins setting up a move like that. This is exactly what happened last cycle. If we look at Bitcoin dominance, and what we're looking at for Bitcoin dominance, let me fix my screen, is what happened last cycle when altcoin season started, right? This is really what we've been waiting for, is a move like this. Bitcoin dominance just starts falling. Well, notice what was happening right there in December, January area, right? If we go to the Bitcoin chart, here is December, January area, right here. Bitcoin's breaking all-time highs. This is what we want to see for Bitcoin right now. When it comes to Bitcoin dominance, let's put emotion aside again, and then I want to look at the SUI chart and the Cardano charts. We have to wait. At least I do. I've been tracking this entire Bitcoin dominance move, right? We've been watching it cruise to the upside to this lower high Fibonacci. We've even tested the upper 786 range of the Fibonacci at 66%. What I'm waiting for is really just Bitcoin dominance to break the moving averages, the 20, the 50, and ultimately, if we get a proper altcoin bull market, I'm looking for the 20-week moving average to ultimately start falling and breaking below even the 50-week moving average. Maybe it's not as strong as it was last cycle or as fast as it was last cycle, but I'm looking for altcoins to make a move here on Bitcoin dominance, but I'm waiting, right? And what I'm waiting for is 20-week moving average, 63%, 50-week moving average, 60%. I need those things to be broken before I'm even talking too much about an altcoin bull market or altcoin season. We were getting incredibly close back here in November, and I really thought this was going to be the move, and it wasn't. So I'm going to continue monitoring that chart. But what I want to do is I want to look at SUI, because SUI is offering something for me, not only from a trade perspective. Many of you might know I made a recent trade with SUI, but a technical analysis perspective. So let's discuss this chart. And by the way, with SUI, what I did was I went into itrustcapital, actually, the sponsor of today's video. Shout out to itrustcapital. Go set up your crypto IRA, because what I did was I did an allocation to SUI. I made a trade within my crypto IRA. This is exactly these macro types of trades. I'm not a trader on the short term, but these macro plays that I'm interested in, you can do it within your crypto IRA, tax-free. So they have a bunch of coins back here. You can kind of see at the top of the screen, there's everything scrolling, a ton of tax advantages, 24/7, low cost, no monthly fee. So please click the link below and get set up with them. If you don't have an account, it takes like minutes to set up an account, and you can do these things. So for me with SUI, I like the narrative and I wanted some exposure, and I'm like, I just don't want to be doing any trades right now that need to be tracked for tax purposes. So I made a trade within my crypto IRA, and on the macro, I'm not sure exact timing of when I'll flip out of SUI, but what I'm watching on SUI is this. Right now, SUI is at a very interesting area, and I think will potentially act as a leading indicator if we're about to get an altcoin bull market. This is something that SUI kind of did back here, and this was in September 2024. It started moving. It eventually broke out of this very important lower high. So swing high to swing low to this lower high area. It was resistance, you can see, for quite some time. And this is the caution now. We're at a very similar Fibonacci resistance. But once it broke out, it really did well. And it overperformed and it led altcoins in one way. And I think that era for SUI is still here, where it can just break out of nowhere and kind of go crazy. And if we get a move like that, I will be paying attention to altcoins. This can be one bullish confirmation for me if SUI breaks out of this lower high Fibonacci range. But again, the data is something we should focus on. It's not done it yet, right? This is where emotion can be left on the sidelines. Let's wait. At least I'm waiting to see if SUI can break through this area and start making a run for it. When it comes to SUI itself, I was looking at our risk model for SUI because we do have one. And one thing you'll notice is this is SUI's first cycle. So if you look at the risk model, we have this area even right here. 67 is like this. It could be a little misleading, and that's why I wanted to bring this up. 67 is like, man, if you look at the whole chart for SUI, 67 risk score is like, hey, time to sell. And so that's because SUI has not had a bull market. You go look at something like a risk model for ADA. Now we're looking at what a proper risk model, I think, looks like for an altcoin bull market. And I think SUI, though it's sitting at a 58 right now, has a ton of upside in terms of risk. So I was talking to Zero. We just launched Zero in our platform about SUI, and there's insight here right now. Even if you're not a member of our system, there's insight in this. I was asking Zero about SUI. On a risk model like SUI, how would you approach in terms of taking profits? It doesn't have a bull cycle under its belt, so there's not historical context. And I just said, is it useful to use an altcoin that does have cycles under its belt? And I want to do this in this video because this is going to offer insight into how much upside I think altcoins actually still do have in store for them. So Zero is replying to me right now. You're absolutely right on track by considering the lack of historical bull cycle data, the challenge of newer coins like SUI. And there's another one. Dog is a huge play of mine this cycle. That does not have last cycle data. I'm going to be tapping into other risk models for altcoins from previous cycles to make moves. So using established altcoins as a model. Cardano has multiple bull and bear cycles under its belt. And it's just basically going into profit-taking strategy. Set exit levels gradually. And I think this is what's important. When you look at a risk model and when we start getting into higher levels of risk scores, I'm not going to be on something like SUI, like, oh, we're at 67. This is where it topped out last time in this bull move. If we're in pre-bull market territory, and this is where I start bringing into context the bigger story, the fundamentals of the cycle. If we're in pre-bull market territory, even if SUI's hitting 67, well, guess what? If you go look at something like ADA, here's ADA in the 60s, pre-parabolic bull move. This, even for SUI, is a pre-parabolic bull move. And I think probably Zero, I'm not going to read all of what Zero is saying over here, but I think what Zero is trying to break down is look at other data points, have a scale-out approach in terms of SUI, but absolutely, I will not be using these kind of midterm risk scores on SUI. I will be using macro risk scores like we see on things like Cardano. I think something like SUI can reach 80s, 90s, even 100 in a bull cycle. And those are areas I'll be watching for SUI as well as Cardano. But going back to SUI, and then I want to look at the Cardano charts, this is what I'm looking at. If SUI starts breaking out of this area, I think we're very much in territory of this type of move for altcoins. And look at that move. So to give you perspective on what we just talked about from a risk type of perspective, you know, SUI could be kind of getting into, I don't know, the 60s at a moment like this and have a ton of upside in store, right? So what does that look like? That's something I'll be watching for SUI. But anyway, SUI up to around 390, let's just call it 4, is a breakout macro confirmation area, but also this is a resistance area that I want to be careful of right now because this can play out to be a lower high resistance, especially there's a lot of hype this week. I'm excited. I think it could be a meaningful breakout week for crypto, but we can't just base it on the narrative alone. It's crypto week in terms of the US and all of these voting, you know, legislative votes that are happening for like Genius and the Clarity Act and all of this. We can't just base it on that alone. So that's what I'm watching on SUI. Going over to Cardano, I want to point this out to you. It's also in a lower high area. You can just see lower highs across the board. Let's take a look from a clip. This was from the other day. Check this out real quick. 2 days ago. This separation above the 200-day moving average. And this is solely what I wanted to bring up in this video. What's happening here? What's happening today? Are we getting a a daily resistance candle, meaning we're just falling back below, closing below the 200-day moving average, getting a big wick? Well, if we go look at the daily chart, that is exactly what happened the other day. So we got that initial resistance. There's that big wick that we were talking about. When I was doing the video, we were trading above that area, right? And then, boom, resistance. Yesterday, a day of consolidation and unknown. Right now, testing the 200-day moving average again. So my question remains, can ADA have a breakout moment here? Can it start getting separation from the 200-day moving average? Because guess what? We've been here, everybody. We've had just these nice moves. We get all hype. We start calling bullish confirmations, and it's not, right? It's the local top, and then we're going lower. These are the things I'm waiting for right now. Even on this daily chart for Cardano, if we're looking at this, swing high to swing low. And I'm not trying to sound bearish. I'm trying to sound very unemotional and also just completely data-driven. I am internally very bullish, but I want to see it play out on the chart, that bullishness. And that starts with technical bullish confirmations. The 200-day needs to be broken. This lower high Fibonacci to 79 cents needs to be broken. If those things start happening, if you change this to a weekly chart on Cardano, guess what? Now we have something very big in play. And that is separation for the first time in months from these moving averages, because it has been just intermingling and resistance at all of these macro moving averages, the 200, the 20, the 50. If those daily moves start happening to that 79 cent plus area, guess what? Cardano's flipping all of these moving averages. This massive multi-week resistance, the 20-week, the 200-week, the 20-week, Cardano will be closing candles above that area. We've been kind of closing candles below that area. It's been a struggle, all while flipping momentum to the upside. So the move is in play, everybody. Okay? But on the short term, I'm just waiting for confirmations. And for me, I'm positioned. It's not like I'm waiting for confirmations and then I'm going to start just accumulating ADA. This is more mentally as I watch these markets. I'm not going to sit here and just get all, man, this is it. This is the parabolic bull market breakout for altcoins. At the very least, I want to see these things happen on the shorter term. And so you can just see even on the weekly, this is a lower high still, but we start getting separation. We start getting to 79, 80 cent area. Now we're really starting to get some separation from these moving averages. And remember, if I go to the ADA chart that we've been tracking, this is the bull market doors, this red rectangle that you see right there. Cardano is just at the lower end of that. So the real bull confirmation for something like Cardano for me is the upper range of that. It's $1.20 to $1.25. That's where the real fun starts. When we start looking at the risk model for ADA, that's where I think the real fun is going to start. That's where people will start maybe not making take exit profit trades, but they're going to start paying attention to our risk models in the system. You'll see the risk score start slowly rising for ADA, and then we could be entering these bull market territories on the risk score, the 70s, the 80s, and 90s. That's where I think alerts are really going to start going off within our intelligence system for members, not only just on Cardano, but we have BNB, Solana, we have other altcoins back there. So we're still pre-bull market territory though. We're still pre that move happening. So I'm just going to continue watching markets. I'm going to show you as long as I can these risk models and kind of evaluate what I'm thinking in terms of them. But right now, still so much time for upside. Even on the short term, you can see I'm just not even fully convinced of this move yet. There might be a rejection. If you look at Cardano, we might get rejected at the Fibonacci, have to go lower back into the 60s. Everybody's bearish, and then we're getting a breakout. I do not know how this will play out. I'm waiting. So these are my thoughts as we start this new week. I haven't even talked about the big week that is ahead. It is crypto week, and there is a lot that we're going to be talking about going through this week in relation to this, the speculation that surrounds this. I believe we also have CPI data that is, I don't want to say this wrong, but it might be tomorrow. I'm not sure. but that could play into this week. So let's see what happens. That could be the breakout moment for crypto to the upside if it's kind of better than what people are expecting. So let's see. Let's track it. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Hit that like on the way out if you enjoyed this content. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.